so welcome to join us. We are recording this session for YouTube for our friends to watch later. So I do have a few housekeeping things to go through before we get started. Oh, hold on one second. Okay. So we muted everybody to prevent disruptions, but we'll be recording this and putting it on our YouTube channel. Feel free to rename yourself in the Zoom, I think it's in the participant list with your name and your student organization if you want. Feel free to share your thoughts in the chat box. I will try to monitor it as we are going on and talking through our this conversation with our panelists. So feel free to, if you have issues or if you have questions, put that in the chat box. I don't think we'll have breakout rooms in this session, but if you need anything, just let us know. And then at the very end, we will share the survey so that you all can get credit for today's session, because I know many of you are going through the re-registration process and are needing LeadCon as a fulfillment for the 3 steps. So thank you again for joining us. We'll get started with some introductions. So Emily, why don't you get us started with your name, your pronouns, the organization you're the president for, and maybe a sentence about your organization.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Emily Rumaldo. My pronouns are she, her, hers. The organization that I was a part of is Central Americans for Empowerment. And so the whole purpose was to provide inclusion and an opportunity for others to meet and be allies, but also find community.
I don't think Haley is here. I don't see Haley in chat box. Haley, if you're here, say hi. If not, we'll go to Jehu.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jehu Jogwe, and I'm the president of the National Association of Black Accountants. I hope I answered both the questions. Was that good, Glenn?
Can you say maybe a sentence about your organization?
Yeah, and a little bit about my organization. So it's a national organization that we brought to Cal State Fullerton, and it's predominantly meant for Black students, but it's also open to any student that wants to join and learn more about accounting. So.
Cool. And hello there, my name is Madison. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I was the president of the Pencil Mileage Club. And the Pencil Mileage Club is basically dedicated to students who are passionate about animation and illustration. And it's a way for like-minded creatives to connect and meet with industry professionals and draw a whole lot.
Alrighty, and I'm Rachel. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm the president of the gaming club here on campus, and we try to provide a welcoming environment for students to learn about and play video games, where we can host just casual game nights, and we also have esports as well.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves. One thing I wanted to note about these panelists are that many of them were, actually all of them were nominated for a Tuffy Award category last year. So Tuffy Awards, for many of you who, if any of you aren't familiar with Tuffy Awards, it's our end of year recognition celebration. And so we have a number of different award categories like Presidents of the Year or Student Organization of the Year or Virtual Engagement Award. And so these panelists were all nominated last year for Tuffy Awards. So we have some really stellar student leaders with us that will be sharing their experiences. And I want to make sure that you all have an opportunity to answer or ask them questions as well. So our first question that we have for our panelists are, tell us how you got involved and later became the president of your organization. And did you initially see yourself as a leader? Do any of you want to get started with that question?
Sure, I can hop onto that one. So I initially joined Gaming Club because I've been really into video games my whole life. And so I joined, didn't really see that many like women in the club. And so I got a little intimidated. But one of the leaders at the time, the vice president, she came up to me and was like, hey, what do you like to do? I told her I was pretty good at video games. And so I ended up joining the esports program. And I climbed my way up there, going to management and managing the team. Then I went to SEICC representative and just climbed to president eventually. I didn't see myself doing that at first because I just casually wanted to join a club, but I wanted to help out so much. And I'm very passionate about video games. I still am, like, I'm still the president this semester, but yeah, that's just, it wasn't necessarily a goal, but it's something I am passionate about.
I will continue to jump on that note. Very similar to you, Rachel. I was very, very passionate about just the Pencil Mileage Club. It was about, I think, like the third speaker event of my freshman year that I went to, and I realized, like, I want to help out with this club so badly. I want to be a part of this, and give back and help as much as I can, because, like, my freshman year being a member of the club, I realized that everything that current officer board did was for us, for the club, for the students, and that really inspired me to want to give back and do the same. And as far as like leadership goes, it wasn't that huge of a jump, I think, being a leader, because when I was in high school in Boy Scouts, I held a few leadership positions, and in those I learned like what the true value of leadership is, and it's being a servant. Being a servant leader, I think, is the most important thing. So I just really wanted to have that same mindset as I jumped into the Pencil Mileage Club as an advertiser, which was one of the poster makers, and just wanted to serve the artist community in the way that I was served as a freshman.
I can go ahead and go next and say that the reason, so I initially joined the National Association of Black Accountants while it was a national organization, and it was actually not at Cal State Fullerton, and then got together and banded together with a group of students that were in the business college, and we decided to bring it to life on campus. So part of that was also fueled a little bit by some of the racial injustice that was going on, and just creating a safe space for a lot of the students in the accounting department to come together and really kind of just go through the process of like recruiting in accounting, which can be a challenge. So it was really good that we were able to do that. And part of the reason that I initially chose to take on that leadership position was definitely because although I didn't know too much about leadership, it was something that I wanted to learn more about. And I had the great opportunity of working with some people that are also looking to develop those skills. So it was sort of a win-win. And yeah, that's it for me.
So with Café, the cool thing about that was it wasn't on campus at all when we were thinking about creating it. It was because of a social, I believe, at the Latinx Resource Center now. And it was just a lot of Central Americans coming together, talking about their experience, talking about campus life, how they grew up and how they wanted the space together. So since I've already done like leadership before in high school, and I've been working for student life, and I understood the process of creating an org, what we needed. I just kind of went ahead and was like, I can do it if you all need me to do it. And so that's how it came about, and we just went from there.
Thank you all for sharing. I think it really is interesting to hear, like, some of you have very similar backgrounds of like, oh, I'm down for the cause, and this is why I took on this leadership role, whether it was like an interest or social justice. That's really exciting. And I think as a student leader, you have to balance so many roles, like as you have different interests and different responsibilities. You're first and foremost a student, but we know that some of you are working, off campus or on campus, and you have responsibilities at home and everything else that life has to throw at you. And then even like last year in COVID, it was a wild year. So how did you all balance your different roles and responsibilities? Are there like tools that you use, strategies you like employed, resources on campus that you took advantage of, apps that you downloaded? Like, how did you all manage your time as a president of a student organization and a student and everything else that you have to do in life?
I guess I could talk on that. So I worked on campus. I was full-time. I was part of a bunch of orgs. And then on top of that, I was leading this org. And obviously with COVID and everything, one of the biggest things was using some type of scheduling tool. So whether that be your calendar app, if you're having Zooms, adding all of those in so you know what time you have to be somewhere, and also just factoring in what time you're going to start doing things and what time you're free. So if I had a chunk of time from 1 to 5, I'm not going to make myself available all that time. I need to study. So maybe from 1 to 3, I'm going to study. And then from 3 to 5, I'm free. So, and also understanding the power of no, I can't. So not being that yes person all the time, being able to let people know, hey, I have this going on, share what you're comfortable sharing, but let them know that you still want to get these things done. Kind of outlining what you can do for other people and how they can assist you in the positions, because it's not a one person job. It's meant to be a team effort. And that's why you have an e-board.
Yeah, just to second that, I think boundaries was something that really helped me. Like similar to, I'm sure all the panelists here, we had a bunch of different responsibilities we were balancing. And one of them for me was also like a part-time job, but I was also, working from home. And, technically I could pick up my phone and respond to messages, check emails, do anything I wanted to. But I think setting those boundaries for myself really helped, where when I was in my work hours, I wouldn't check my club messages unless, it was like urgent, some emergency, or we had, an event that evening. I tried to do my best to, distance myself and set those work hours, set those work days. And yeah, like Emily said, saying no is really freeing. It helps a lot. And because, you're only one person and you can't be everywhere at the same time, even though technology makes it seem like you can, it's probably not healthy to do that. And then my recommendation is Google Calendar. I absolutely love Google Calendar because you can quickly, jot down things, and it can track from your phone to, your computer. It's all in that system. And if you want to set up a meeting, you can do a Google Meet meeting right there. And it says like, add a video conferencing link. It's one click of a button. It's even easier than Zoom, in my opinion. So I would say Google Calendar is great. And they also set reminders, like you can remind yourself 30 minutes before an event happens. So that's really helpful too. And I would also say it's really great to, reach out to mentors or peers and ask them for their advice. That's definitely what I did throughout my year as a president. I would reach out to like Jogwe, our faculty advisor, and other professionals in, the animation industry that I look up to. And I said, how do you manage your time? Like as a director, as a storyboard artist, like how do you balance all these different responsibilities? And another piece of advice that I was given was to just schedule absolutely everything, like family time, break time, because if you don't schedule things like family time or you time, it's not going to happen. And it makes it so much more real when that is in your calendar, because you have to follow that. And my first initial reaction was like, well, that seems like really, enslaving and restricting, like I'm a slave to my calendar. But it's actually not, because when you put in that time, you can move on. You can see it tangibly. Okay, I spent, 2 hours on this task. I'm going to follow up on that tomorrow. And it just really helps you to see what it is you've done throughout the day. And it just, in my experience, it's a lot more freeing than it is enslaving, because it just helps you to move on and not have some ambiguous guess, like, should I do more? Should I not? I don't really know where I stand in this work, that whole thing. And it helps you focus a lot better. That's my recommendation.
I can go ahead and go last. So I really utilize tools like Outlook to kind of just set my schedule straight from the week. And then from there, worked with the board to kind of figure out what we needed to get done in terms of club responsibilities and things that we were promising our members. So, and also just being able to stay flexible with that was a big part of how not only I manage my schedule, but also some of the other board members. And then on top of that, just definitely reaching out in advance to let people know what my availability was going to look like and kind of sticking to it. So kind of sweet and short. That was my what I did. And then any advice that I'd have, I'd say maybe go get an Apple Watch and sync your Apple calendar to it or whatever calendar you use, because that's probably going to be the best lifesaver right there for you.
Rachel, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Honestly, they hit all the points. Like, it's just staying organized and making sure that you keep track of everything that you've got to like going.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of find the tool that will work for you. Don't try to do something that somebody else uses that might not work for you. So for some people, it might be Google Calendar. For some people, it might be Outlook. And for some people, it might be your Apple Watch. But find something that works for you to manage your time. One of the questions that I think comes up a lot for student organizations, particularly as I'm meeting with student groups, because they're like, I'm the president, but of these organizations, but oftentimes like it's you're leading your friends, and these are your peers, and these are people that you'll hang out with outside of like these student org meetings, or these are people that you'll see in class. And so what was the biggest challenge for you all when you were leading your peers as the president, and how did you overcome that challenge?
Oh, I could talk about this. I think I'm that kind of person. It's like, I like things done a certain way. So if I have to, I'll take on more roles to get it done. But that's an issue because then it goes back to you're not managing yourself right. You feel overwhelmed, you're not getting enough done. And I think the biggest thing is, if this is your e-board, you're supposed to depend on them. You're supposed to be able to give them expectations and have execution. And if it's not happening, have that communication. I always go with like the sandwich message, like compliment, the critique, and another compliment. Like, thank you for taking the time to be here. But we need to talk about X, Y, and Z about this event and what happened with it. Or maybe we didn't finish our slideshow, our presentation by this day. What happened? What went wrong? What do we have to fix? And then on top of that, like, you're doing a great job. We just need to make sure to do this next time. So I think it's all about, yes, they are your friend, but when you are meeting as an e-board, like, this is business. We got to get something done. Because it's kind of you need to be able to separate your personal and the professional. And in this case, your club is your professional because people are coming to it, attending to it, and expecting something from it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, my friends were also the people that were on board. And one of my big issues that I faced was that delegating, just having them go and do it, because I'd see it and I'd go, oh, I noticed this thing, I can just go do it. But we run into that time management problem that we just keep talking about. And so I had to try to build this trust where it's like, yes, I trust you as a friend, but do I trust you as a board member? And I just had to let go of, okay, you have the socials. This is your specialty. You have this portfolio that you showed me. That's why you're on my board. It's not just because you're my friend or anything like that. You have a job to do and you can do it. And so it is hard to just be in charge of them because you feel like you're ruling what they do, but you're not doing that. You're managing, you're making sure that they get what they need to get done and that they're not stressing themselves out. Like, we always say, hey, if you have too much to do, let us know. And then like someone else can do it. My vice president can step in and help you out. Like, that's what we're all here for, is to help each other out. And I also ran into the problem just with peers in like my club overall, because I'm the first like female president of gaming club, and a lot of people kind of didn't respect that at first. And so I had to try to step around that a little bit. And I just found out that getting to know members individually, like outside of our club events, really helped with that. Just being like, hey, I'm not like scary. I'm friendly. I know what I'm talking about, and I can chat with you all day, any day. Like, just let me know whenever I'm free. But that's just kind of how I handled it, just having conversations and letting people know what's going on.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go next and just say, the biggest challenge that I faced with amongst my peers was definitely just maintaining that growth mindset, especially early on, right? I think everyone was really concerned with, all right, well, we want to get members, we want to increase participation and all of those things, which are great. And just not being able to get watered down in the fact that if you do put on an event, right, and it doesn't necessarily turn out the way you think it would, and maybe you don't get as much participation or people were a little bit kind of shy at first, just realizing that, you know, you're still developing a process by doing that, and just having that meeting, it's going to help you with the next one, and then just being able to build on top of what you have. That was something that we started to take a little bit more into consideration, and just keep that in mind, as opposed to just kind of focusing on the negatives. We started focusing more on the positives, and just like continue to lead towards slowly more people finding out, and then us being able to make a better impact because of that. So I'd say that was my experience.
And then just to piggyback what everyone's saying, like delegation was also like probably the biggest challenge for me, because I think like the role of president is unique, where you could be doing very, you know, overseeing a lot of stuff, or the next day you could be doing something like this seemingly smallest thing, you know, just getting it done. And knowing that balance between like what is your job and then what is the job of the other officers. And something that I realized as a president was that we have a team, you know, the Pencil Mileage Club has a team of 19 officers for a reason. You know, it's not, as president, it's not my job to carry this club single-handedly. I can't do that. And it's not like the officers made me think that. It's my, you know, I think it's all of our ambitions that made us think like, okay, we're the president, we have to do absolutely everything. But no, we have 19 people is a lot of people, and that's a lot of different jobs. So I think, yeah, just remembering that you have a team for a specific reason, because you can't do it on your own. And something I did in the second semester that I think really helped was I held one-on-one meetings with each member of our board, at least those who were interested in participating. And we did like little 15-minute sessions per month. And that not only helped, I think, them, because I said, like what you were talking about, Rachel, like, hey, is there anything, you know, how's your role going? You know, what help do you need? Do you need me to ask another officer to kind of, you know, pitch in and help you out? Like, how's your life going? Are things too crazy? But it also helped me realize and take it, you know, one step at a time to see what their roles are, because it can kind of be hard, you know, from time to time when you're just looking at the big picture without seeing all the specifics. And I think meeting with each officer one-on-one helped me realize these are very capable people. They can, you know, they can do it, and they're doing amazing jobs, and they've got it. They've totally got it for, you know, most everyone actually that was in our board. So I think, you know, taking that step to check in with them really helped me see and not get lost in just the jumbled mess it could kind of seem, as we've got all these things going on, but when you take a look at each thing individually, it really helped.
Thank you all for sharing. That's so helpful. Stacy in the chat said, solid advice so far. And I would have to agree that there's some gems coming out of this, and I appreciate your perspective. And I know that was like one question in this panel discussion. This is a you know, plug for the rest of LeadCon. On Wednesday, we have a session about leading a student organization and what does it mean to lead a group and navigate conflict. And then next week, we have a session on creating and managing expectations, because I think that's part of the, you know, leading your peers part. And so feel free to attend and RSVP to those sessions. But our next question is related to your relationships with your advisors. I know many of you, every student organization has an advisor because it's required as part of the CSU policy. But can you all maybe talk about what your relationship is like with your advisors and what tips you might have in leveraging the role of your student organization advisor? And if you met with them, you know, what kind of discussions did you have? any experience or feedback is welcome.
When it comes, I'll answer the second question first because it leads to the first question. So in leveraging your advisor, understand what you want them to do for your organization and understand how available they are, and like think about the future of your organization. Is this person that you have in mind adjunct? Do they have tenure? Are they staff? Are they a professor? So kind of understand how long do they expect to be with the college, because you want to set your club up for success. You want them to have someone to talk to if they want to. And then because we were a new org, we wanted someone who was supportive of our mission, supportive of our goals, who we could go to and talk to personally, but also be there to do the paperwork. If we needed to get money out of our account, would they be available throughout the week for us to go there? Because from the student assistant perspective, I've seen a lot of orgs come in and say like, well, my professor who is our advisor is on sabbatical, so they're not available, or, oh, we don't really meet with them. So it's like, understand what you want out of them, and then that will help you pick someone. And so our relationship with our advisor, they are tenure, and he has always been very open. He's very passionate. His research was around the Central American experience because he himself is Central American. So like he identified with our group, and he was always constantly sending us emails. How are you doing? What's happening? Do you need anything from me? Would you like me to lead a meeting? Do you want me to lead a meeting or a reading? So it's just establishing that communication and making sure this is something you want out of the person. And I think that was the biggest thing during the pandemic, was he wasn't all about, you need to have these events to like satisfy this type of condition that you all set for yourself in the Constitution. Like he was more like, how are you mentally doing? How are you physically doing? Do you need any like coping mechanisms or something? So for us, that was extremely helpful. So figure out what you want out of that person.
Okay, I'm gonna go next, but I do have a little bit more of a disappointing story going here, because we've been a club for, oh my goodness, like 6 years, I think. So we've had our advisor for a while. He's a fantastic guy, old school gamer. So he likes more of the classic games like that you can think of. And we used to have meetings with him like every month in person, chat about what's going on, and he would help us. Like he got us with the push to become a sports club with esports, which is just absolutely amazing, and I love that. But with the pandemic, when that happened, we kind of lost contact with him. And we definitely did lose something a little bit. Like I think I was reaching out more to Gleanne than I was to our advisor, which I do feel kind of bad about doing that. But it is very important to maintain that kind of contact. Like we've gotten back into contact with him, and we're trying to arrange meeting in person again. But it's just what Emily said, just it's important to find someone that's passionate about what your club is about, so that you can just have that connection and maintain it for a long time.
I think you both said it perfectly. That's what I absolutely agree with. Just like, yeah, finding someone who's very passionate. And I would also say, like, if you have the time, do your best to, you know, build a strong personal connection with that advisor as well, because it just makes the experience all that much better for you and for the club. Because like there were times when I would have conversations with Chuck about like artists or, you know, people in the animation industry. He's like, oh, what about this person, you know, to be, maybe they'll be a good person, you know, to invite as a speaker. And then there would be times where he just kind of emails, you know, me random links to, you know, portfolio reviews and sessions and stuff like that within the animation industry. And I think if you find someone, you know, you personally can connect with, they'll see that passion and they'll go even more out of their way to contribute to the club.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and add to that and just mention that if your advisor is kind of like something, if he's a person that he's like part of a network, right, that he can tap you into, definitely take advantage of that, because that's one thing that you'll have to like understand is that your advisor is connected to people that could potentially come and speak to the students, like and really help them get on to the next level, what they're looking to do, whether it's like in a specific field or and this is for more of the academic clubs as opposed to like some of the social clubs, but also the advisor should be able to help you out with that. So yeah, just being able to leverage the network is all I'd add.
Thank you all for sharing. I don't think a lot of people think about like the networks that the advisors have beyond like Cal State Fullerton. They just think like, oh, this person teaches on campus or in this subject, so maybe I will ask them to be an advisor. Or I heard so-and-so is interested in gaming, and so we're going to ask them to serve as an advisor, but really thinking about like tenure. Like, I don't know if I've ever really thought about that for student organizations. I know I think about it sometimes for like part-time lecturers, but like, how long have they been on campus? And do they like having those conversations with your advisors is valid to ask them like, do you see yourself staying on campus for the next several years? Because we want our organization to thrive. And would you be willing to serve in that capacity for us? I think those are worthwhile conversations because, you know, a student organization isn't just one person. It's more than, you know, and we hope that they will exist after you graduate. So this is really helpful. As we are still in this pandemic, how did you all navigate this uncertainty? I know like at the beginning of March 2020, we thought we were just going to get like a long spring break, and things have been changing all the time. And so I guess as we prepare for a hybrid fall and this Delta variant that's looming, like what advice do you all have for students planning and engaging their peers for this upcoming semester?
I would say, like, ask, you know, the previous president and the previous board as many questions as you may have, you know, throughout the entire year, because that's exactly what I did. Because, you know, the board before us, they, you know, dealt with the beginning of the pandemic, and they were the ones who really had to like pave this path, which made it a lot, I mean, it wasn't easy, but they made it a lot easier on us for this school year. And I would also say, like, some advice going into it, like, don't expect your student-run organization to be perfect, because that's what we are. You know, we're student-run organizations. We're not multi-billion-dollar companies. We're not trying to organize Coachella here. We're just trying to organize, you know, events. So if there's mishaps, move on, learn from your mistakes. That's okay. We had, you know, quite a few mistakes, and there were struggles with like live streams, and we tried to ship out merchandise and we had to charge extra. But I think people kind of forget, like, we don't have like an Amazon facility, you know, to ship out stuff. So we're just students here. So, you know, be kind to yourself, be kind to your officers, knowing that, you know, we're all working through this together and mistakes are absolutely okay.
I think something that came up was understanding that people have a lot going on personally because of the pandemic. I know in one of our classes, like our advisor, the one that he was teaching was around the pandemic, and he kind of was like, if you have to go home, if you have to do this, if you have elderly people in your family that you are worried about, don't even worry about this class. Like, so I think taking the same approach with the club is be a safe space for people to come to and to de-stress, and find ways to interact both in person and virtually, because there are people who are not going to want to come back to campus so soon. Like, obviously with a new variant, it's scary. But on top of that, there are people who are ready to socialize again in smaller capacities. And so being able to be inclusive and make that hybrid model. And I think also lean on other student organizations. I think that was the best part is, you know how we would go to people's events like, oh, my event is from 4 to 5, your event is from 2 to 3. Team up with other organizations. If you're having problem with participation or having problem with attendees, go ahead, make a joint event, have something like, we're going to do a game night together. And not only will that be more engaging, but it's going to allow people to feel more included. They're going to be like, wow, this definitely is the Titan experience. Versus it just being the e-board and being disappointed. I think another thing was, don't plan events for yourself and for your enjoyment. Don't plan events with the hope 100 people are going to show up. 50 people are going to show up, because then you're going to set yourself up for disappointment. Do things that you're like, wow, this is going to be fun. At the end of the day, it's a great experience. And another tip is allow people to get personal in your meetings. Something I took from Hermanos Unidos is every meeting we did, tell us a rose in your day and a thorn in your day. So what was the positive that you had during the week, during the day, like the hour before, and what's something that kind of like was the bad part of your day? So you can be able to express that. And it definitely improved everyone's mood because you were able to talk with people again.
Yeah, I definitely agree with all of that. Like, we learned our lesson the hard way. We thought we wouldn't get hit as hard because we're video games that can be online, but we burned out our club members really fast with a lot of events early on, and it's definitely just go at the pace that feels right. We cut our meetings in half and everyone loved it. So that's how it works out. One of the things I definitely learned is like to utilize our social media way more than we were before. People were having trouble finding us. Like, we used to have people wander into our club room because, oh, there's video games, I'll come join. Now it's like, where do they even go? They have to find our social media, go on Titan link, go and find us. So we utilize Discord personally, just because that's a lot more friendly for the gaming community. And that just ended up working out a lot better. And something else that we changed within our Discord was we did allow for conversations to be a little bit more deep. Before, we were like, hey, keep anything that's a little heavy outside of this, like, you can talk in person. You can't do that anymore. So we said, hey, it's okay to talk about these things. Just please do not fight with each other. Like, we're being respectful. We all are dealing with a lot right now. And it definitely did help out. But I think our biggest lesson that we learned was social media is definitely how to grab people now. It's not necessarily just off, like when they're walking by, it's like, hey, do you like video games? It's now, hey, we have a Twitch stream that's going to be going on. Come and join that.
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and add just part of my experience with the pandemic and everything in the club as well. It could be very difficult when you're in a virtual environment. So just to be able to maintain that sense of enthusiasm. So I'd say that there's going to be a little bit more of an advantage to the in-person meetings. You can kind of bring those to your members, but also still have those virtual meetings as well to create a little bit more of a flexible model. And I just say that, yeah, just staying flexible and being able to adapt to the situation, whatever it may be, because by the time fall comes around, you don't necessarily know what that is for certain. So just kind of keeping that mindset of, you'll be able to work through it and just kind of go with things as they happen. It's the only advice that I'd say I have.
Thank you for sharing. I don't know what's going on with my Zoom, so I had to log on with my phone. But the second question is related to all the weird things happening in the pandemic. I think you all served in a leadership role when society was facing lots of issues related to social justice. And we're still dealing with issues related to the pandemic, race, climate change, and more. And so can you all talk a little bit about how that affected your involvement in your student organization? And did your organization address these issues, and how? And if you can do anything over, and do things differently, would you do anything differently?
I'd like to start on this one. So when all of that happened, again, we opened up our chat Discord just so that people could actually talk about those things a lot more openly. And we created a position called the diversity officer, which basically reached out to all the resource centers on campus and advertised their events everywhere and said, hey, if you want to check out this thing from the Women's Center and other stuff like that. And it really helped people feel a lot more comfortable. We created pronoun roles so that everyone could identify how they wanted to. And we also have women in gaming within our club, which advocates for just anyone who just feels underrepresented, and they host their own events where it's like, hey, if you want, just so that it can be a safe space for the people within our club, because I know some people don't feel as safe in certain environments, and so they're trying to welcome in more people that way. And I think that really helped. Like, I know that when Women in Game founded, I think I was still a member, and I was like, oh my goodness, there's actually other women in this club. I did not know that legitimately. And even though that's kind of sad, it's true. And I'm very proud to say this now, that my board's actually 50-50 now. It used to be like me and maybe like 2 other women on board, and now we're actually 50-50, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I can go ahead and go next. So I'd say that there was the social justice issues that were going on earlier in the year were definitely a huge part of just like I'd say our club and organization. And we would have meetings when things came up that needed to be addressed. So we'd frequently reach out to not just, and we wouldn't put the pressure on ourselves to do it. We'd kind of make it more of a conversation, right? So we'd reach out to people that are maybe professionals in our like organization's kind of career, right, in accounting, and we would set up meetings to see how their business is addressing those things, right, and kind of learn from them too, because that's going to be the potential future that we're going to jump into. And then we'd also work with a lot of the kind of resource centers. Specifically, we worked a lot with the Black Student Union, and we were able to really like go to a lot of events together. And then after the events, we would sit down and have a quick discussion about them and talk about what we learned and kind of like how it relates to our lives. And yeah, and I think just being able to do that and access the resource centers is a huge key. So yeah, that's just about does it for me. I'll go ahead and pass on to the next person.
I think so in terms of the involvement, yes, it went down with a lot of the issues that came up, because obviously things affect you on a personal level, and sometimes you don't have the energy to tell that to your organization or plan as many events as you would like. And so we kind of, from the start, like with the pandemic, we were home, we're doing online classes. We would just kind of set up meetings like, we're not really going to talk about business, we're just going to talk. And if you'd like to attend, you can attend. If you're not comfortable, if you don't want to, that's fine. And we also invited other CAFE members from other chapters if they wanted to be included in our conversations, or if they wanted to just listen. Like, we opened it up to everyone. And with that, everyone was able to say like what they were going through if they wanted to. And I think that was very empowering, and kind of like, well, what do we want to do? How do we want to support other people? Are there resources on campus? Do we want to post something? And I think a lot of organizations shy away from being too political or talking about different issues. But I think like if your members are passionate about it, if you're passionate about it, it's not going to be detrimental or harmful to put out those resources for your community, because at the end of the day, like, you have a vision for your board, and if these are your values, put them out. And if not, that's okay. Like, there's no shame in it, but do what feels comfortable to you. And so I don't think we would do anything differently. Nothing was mandatory in the sense of we need to have this event and we're only going to talk about this topic. It was very fluid in what we were doing. And I know in other organizations that I would attend, they would have certain days where a member would say in a group chat, like, hey, I just feel like it's a lot. Can we get on Zoom, whoever's available? And like, you see your members come through for you. They're like, yeah, of course, let's get on. And like, yes, it would be kind of hard conversations, but then it would transition into, okay, well, like, how's your day going? And like talking about different topics. And, at the end of the day, you leave the meeting feeling empowered, you leave the meeting feeling a lot more better, and like someone heard you, you were seen.
Wow, this is all great stuff. I'm really inspired by the actions you guys have taken. I like the Pencil Mileage Club. We engaged with students and make posts on social media promoting our stance, where we stand on these issues. And something that I really liked, that we all really liked, what was it? It was last spring semester in 2020, we did an event featuring Black creatives, Black artists, and those who were at Cal State Fullerton. And people really loved that. So we took that idea and we did a similar kind of thing featuring Latinx artists and creatives during the past school year. And I think that's something that we plan to do, to feature more diversity in artists, and having, like Instagram links, and so people can connect with one another. Those are some things that we did. I think looking back, one of my hopes for the PMC is what I realized to become more aware of our role in our larger community and the world around us. And I think that we're definitely going to be the club's definitely going to continue to grow in that aspect. But similar to the other presidents here, we did strive wholeheartedly to create a safe space for students to just find family and connection and community in these really hard times. We set aside time for students just to talk to one another about anything, similar to the other clubs. And like we called those our lab hours, where students could just do artwork, but also engage in any sort of topic of discussion they'd like to. And we made it a priority to hold a lot more social events for students, just to be relaxed, because that wasn't really like everyone said, having that spontaneous conversation time is just not really possible unless you really make time for it. So just overall, I think we focused on what our club has done best, which is just building a strong community within the arts for students not to feel alone in these really hard times.
That's awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. And I think some of the things that I'm hearing, not just related to social justice, but just leading a student organization and leading your peers is humanizing each other and being able to recognize each other as humans, that we come with all our own different strengths and biases, and being able to engage in conversation, whether it's conflict or responsibilities or engaging your board members, just recognizing like we're all human and we're in this together, and trying to learn from one another is so valuable. So thank you all for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences. My last question for all of you, and then we'll open it up to others for questions, is what is one thing you wish you knew before taking on your president role?
Oh, I know one thing. Understand what's being asked of you and if you can meet that. Because I think a lot of the times you're like, yes, being the president of this org is like, I just need the passion. But on top of that, you need to make sure like you have the time, the energy, that you are able to communicate well with that you pretty much have the leadership skills, that you're able to give to your e-board, and also lead them in a way where you don't have to have all the answers. I think that's another thing. When you're the president, everyone thinks you know everything, and you're like, listen, and the humanizing part, like, listen, I'm a person too. I have classes, I have work, I have a lot of extra things, but together we can do it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to second that that point that you just made, Emily. And also I'm going to add on that I kind of wish that I had understood how much the presidency was, because I think I underestimated it before I actually stepped into the role, where I was like, oh, you just go in front of the club and talk, and that's about it. But that's so not it. There's so many other layers to it. I wish there was a job description where I could say everything that I do, but it's almost impossible because it's just so broad. But definitely just going to a lot of the student life and leadership events, and talking to the alumni, the past leaders, and figuring out, okay, how can I work with this, has helped with that. And I wish I also had a little bit more of the networking that my previous alumni had, before joining, because I had to reestablish some of those connections, like with our fellow gaming club, League of Legends club. We kind of lost connection there for a semester because I didn't know who the president was. But it's just something that we just learned along the way, and I'm hoping to pass on to the next president as soon as I can.
Do you want to go or I can go?
I'll go ahead and go real
Okay.
quick. Yeah, so I just wish that I knew that it's okay to not necessarily accept every opportunity that comes your way as like a board, not just as myself as a president, because there are so many, right? And you can centralize on the things that you do really want to focus on and stay committed to those things. So I wish I knew that earlier on. And it's something that you kind of have to grow into, so.
I would say something I think is helpful to know, and something that I've learned about being a president is to know, do your best to know right when you start, you know, who you're doing all of this for. Because I think being a president, being a good president, probably most of your efforts and your hard work and time spent will go unnoticed because people are not going to focus on you. They're going to focus on the club and their experience. So just know that, you know, at the start, that it's not going to be about you. It's going to be about the people you're serving. But even though you probably won't be thanked as much as you would hope to be, it's still going to be even more so rewarding than you could ever imagine, I think. I think, you know, like I was talking about at the start, like being a leader, I think, is being a servant, where all of your experience, talent, influence, everything that you have, you know, is used to serve these students. And especially, you know, during times of this pandemic and the uncertainty of the fall semester, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really hard. But if you know who you're doing it for, and you know that the work you're going to do as a whole, leading this club, is going to really, you know, impact people's lives, and hey, maybe even inspire them to be a leader themselves, like that's going to make it all worth it, much more worth it than, you know, a thank you would ever be. So just know that. No, it's not going to be easy. You know, you're not going to get all that much praise, but the experience is incredibly rewarding.
The honesty. I appreciate the honesty that it is often a thankless job, and I appreciate you all sharing the hard work that goes into being a student leader, and you all wouldn't be Tuffy Award nominees had you not put in the work. And so I hope all of you are, you know, documenting those wins and all that you did for your student organization, because while people might not notice it immediately, it's definitely something to put in your resume, on your cover letter, to talk about how you led the organization, because it's not enough to just say, I am Emily and I was the cafe, you know, founder. Like, what does that mean? What did you do? How many people were in this organization? How many people did you impact? You know, what was your impact on the community? And so I think those are very valid, you know, things that you can, you know, record and notate and share with other people. While it might not be, you know, within your organization or at Cal State Fullerton, you can still utilize all these experiences beyond, you know, in your leadership role. And so some of the things I heard were, you know, reach out and don't feel like you have to do it alone, or don't feel like you have to do everything, and to leverage your relationships with other people, whether it be people on campus or, you know, your board members, but really going back to the purpose of your organization. Why does your organization exist? Why does it matter to be a member of that organization? And focus on that, rather than trying to do everything for everyone. There are 300 plus student organizations for a reason. And so I think you being unique to your community and recognizing the purpose and the overall mission of your organization is going to help you thrive, as opposed to, I feel like we have to do an academic, you know, event, and I have to do a fundraising event and a social event and a social justice event, and all of those different things. Really focus on your purpose. Well, those were the questions that we had for the panelists. We'd like to open this up to the audience to see if you all have any questions for the panelists that we maybe didn't address. I'm so glad we're recording it.
Oh, wait, can I have a piece of advice?
Of course.
I think set one goal for the semester, one SMART goal. Is it attainable? Are you able to give it a time limit? Like I said, semester. For my organization, like we had our ideas of what we wanted it to be. And then each semester we focused on that. And that was just the main goal. One of them was like advocacy. And so throughout that semester, that was what our meetings were about. And we created a scholarship. And then for another was community. And then that second semester, we were so focused on like starting a class on campus, and it happened. So, focus on one thing. Don't get like 10 things on your list and then you get to the end and you're like, oh, I didn't do that. Focus on one goal. When you reach that goal, set a new goal, and specifically give it a time frame, because if you don't, then you're not going to be able to give yourself the accountability. Did it happen or did it not? And what did we do or what didn't we do?
We got one question in the chat about how would you glamorize going to events that need volunteers? Did anybody have to deal with this?
I'd say see if the event offers free food, because that's a big selling point. If it's a virtual event, it might be a little bit more difficult. And then, yeah, just try and get excited and use it as more of a bonding opportunity where you can help people out. I'd say that's my tip.
So I was a part of NSM ICC. If any of you fall into the category of being a part of an ICC, utilize your ICC. There is funding there, especially because of COVID. They have money to spend. They're willing to throw it at you if you fill out the packet. So I know something for events where we needed members to come, we needed our reps to come. We would do the opportunity drawings where we raffle off like gift cards. Like if you came, if you attended, we would do the random drawing and you could potentially win a gift card. Equal opportunity to everybody, but everyone's like, oh my God, a gift card to what? Is it gas? Is it groceries? Like, what is it going to be? Everyone loves a free gift card. That's the best part. And I think that is a motivating factor for a lot of people, especially during the pandemic.
I think one thing to note is like when you're asking for volunteers, what are they going to get out of it? Whether it's free food or like, is it a gift card? Really thinking about what is the value that these volunteers add to this event, and how could they maybe articulate that onto their resume or use that in an interview later of like, this was the impact this volunteer had on that event, being able to spin it that way to say like, if you're looking for, ways that you share, we're able to contribute to and build a sense of community on campus, maybe that's something to market to your members to say, this is a reason you should volunteer. Is think of all the things you can add onto your resume from that experience. There was another question in the chat. Oh no, my thing does not load. I'm having issues with my Zoom, so I'm on two computers. There was a question related to how do you build a sense of community within your organization? I know some of you kind of alluded to that, but can anybody maybe talk a little bit more? Maybe you have, students who don't know each other, who are all entering or coming to campus for the first time, maybe ever, or just trying to find a sense of community, or only know one person, or maybe that person graduated. How do you build that sense of community within a group?
I have a couple ways. First thing, get your e-board to talk to one new person every meeting. Get to know them, get their phone number, their email, their Instagram, whatever they're comfortable with, so that they can stay connected. Group meets are your best friend. And something I loved about organizations that I would go to, after the meeting was over, they're like, hey, we're all going to go out to dinner. And then we would just kind of vote out, like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? And like the Denny's by school is like a great place to have a pretty good gathering. And you get to talk to people, you get to hang out. And then that's what they would do every meeting. So every meeting, they'd be like, where are we going tonight? And when we did virtual, connecting with people, everyone loves a good meme. Everyone loves to laugh. So what they would do is we would vote on a meme related to our org, like, oh, when so-and-so is late to the meeting every single time, or when you forget that your mic is on, and they would be different pictures. Members would submit them and we would vote. That would be the meme of the week. And we'd post it on the social. Like, this is what the members thought was hilarious this week. So I think just finding ways to make it funny, make it engaging, whether you're in person or online.
Yeah, I definitely second that. Like, we used to go to like after our meetings, we used to go out to like the Denny's or Habit or 85 Degrees after our meetings, and that definitely helped. And I also used to tell my board members, hey, go up to like this, if you see a new person, go up to them, ask them their favorite game, see if you have anything in common, and try to get to know them a little bit more. One of the unique things that I think we can do with our Discord is we say, hey, if you are really into the, like really passionate about this one game, like you can go ahead, like community members can go ahead and like start their own like event. We usually have like a board member or two hovering around and like making sure everything's like running okay. But we like just welcome our like members to say, hey, I really want to like play this game with someone who wants to join me, and they can just go and do it. We just like have that space available for them and make sure that it's safe and that anyone can join. And it's just a good way to like bring new people in if they have like a niche interest that we don't necessarily like get to see with our general events.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Just having that unstructured time to just talk about whatever you want to talk about without having, these rules set in place, like, oh, it's all business, like this is an event, we got to play by these rules. That's something we tried to do. Like just, having more social events. We had game nights, we played Jackbox and other fun games like that. We had movie nights on like Netflix party where people, could just type in the chat and just watch a fun movie and talk about it. We also did one of my favorite events at the Pencil Mileage Club. I don't know how it can apply to other clubs, but we had this speed draw social where like in person, it'd be like all these tables, and people would like switch from one seat to the next, and they'd have to draw each other within like 30 seconds to a minute, and then you switch on to the next person. So it's like this whole mixer. People get to meet each other super fast. It's really fun event. And then we also do like a featuring of a member each week, where if members want to be featured, they want their artwork to be featured in our meetings. They share with us like 3 images, and we give them the opportunity to talk about their work. And I think that paired with using hashtags, like we have life drawing hashtags and speaker event hashtags, if they draw the speakers during the events, is a way for artists to connect with one another and build that community. So I think hashtags really help connect people with one another, as well as featuring a member each week.
So I'll go ahead. I saw another question in the chat. I hope it's all right if I answer this one. It's from Adrian. Yes, what advice would you give someone looking to start a new club? And so as a person who recently started a new club last semester, I would just say, when you start your organization, just be sure to, really be patient with yourself and everyone that is also looking to get on board, and being able to narrow down the scope, where those are just 2 things that are going to really help you out. So it's just like 2 little words of advice there for you. And yeah, and anyone else who's out there looking to start a new club. So
Talk to student life. That is the biggest thing. We have, I used to work for student life. The biggest thing is like they host events for starting a new organization. And if you at least have the idea, like come in and we'll let you know what the process is, what the dates are going to look like. They usually match every single year. And maybe talk to organizations that have the same type of genre or category that you would fall into to kind of get the feedback of, okay, maybe your members would also be interested in joining my club, and or maybe they'd like to serve on the board, or maybe we could be like have close connections. Maybe we'll have meetings together sometimes. Find ways to network with other people, and even just ask your friends, ask your classmates. You can even ask your teachers. They like to hear about your life. They like to know that you're doing something other than studying, and be like, hey, I'm thinking about starting an organization. Can I make an announcement? Make a flyer, come get it stamped in Student Life. You could put it on that bulletin board as you're walking towards the gym. People see it. I'm one of those people that's nosy. I love to watch and be like, okay, what are people posting? What's going on campus? So find ways to get the word out, but follow the rules. Do not post where you cannot post.
There's another question in the chat. What would your advice be to reach out to undergraduate students? Our graduate program is 2 years, and I feel like the longevity of our club would benefit from getting undergraduate students and in leadership roles as well. So I think there's question. I think you all made really great points in terms of like starting a new club, but how do you get them to be active and engaged even after they maybe, after a semester, or after, make sure your group is, sustaining after you graduate.
Yeah, I can go ahead and take this one. I mean, like, as to Glenn, what you were mentioning earlier about making sure that, you're passing on the legacy of your club. And kind of as this question is like kind of alluding to get, I guess, new members, right? Is that kind of the question? So getting students that are in undergrad, I would just say reach out and connect with some of those students, right? And just try and create a little bit of a network there, right? And then just keep going at it and being persistent to put some time into having conversations with maybe even a professor that teaches the undergrad class, and see if you can go in and talk to the students. That might be a good way of being able to kind of reach out and tap into some of those undergrad students. So
I think another way, the way I'm seeing this is that your club is geared towards graduate students. Something that I see undergraduates have, they're kind of scared because they feel like if it has graduate in the name or it's geared towards graduate students that they can't join. So I think making it very clear that yes, they can be a part of it. Yes, they can take on those roles and have more opportunity to grow in that way. I think also just whatever your category of that your club falls into, find ways to promote that. Like, I know a lot of organizations are making TikToks now because everyone's on TikTok. Make Instagram posts, make reels, and do like spirit weeks, or have 1 week that you invite members in. Utilize Discover Fest, find different ways. So maybe instead of your whole booth just being that you're letting people come up to you for information, make it interactive. So, oh, if you come to our booth, we're making little canvases, or we're doing like mini Zen gardens, something that's going to catch the eye, or we're making friendship bracelets, something simple, low cost, but also has people there for a good amount of time that you can tell them about your organization. You can tell them, hey, this is what we usually do. And then hand out the flyer and be like, come to our next meeting. Can I get your contact information? Be ready with those Google Forms, ready to have people fill them out on the spot, or have a QR code. I love QR codes. No typing necessary. Pull out your camera. It works.
Thank you all for sharing that advice. I'm also going to plug our last LeadCon session is a panel event about recruiting, engaging, and retaining your members. And we have many of our other Tuffy Award nominees that will be chatting about the strategies that they employed to do that. I think we have one last question in the chat box about, have you ever had an instance where you butted heads with your advisor or your peers or a board member, and how did you resolve that issue?
I've had this happen before. I think it's being able to be transparent with each other. So like a job, you're going to have instances where you do not get along, or maybe you expected something out of someone. I think it's taking the time to remove the anger that you feel personally. So it's very easy to be reactive, but be proactive and think about, okay, what is the other person thinking? What could be the reason that we're having this conflict? And just listen. Most of the times there's a root to the problem. You just need to hear it out and find a way to kind of move past it. So like I said, with the whole sandwich thing, you don't want to be yelling at someone like, you do not make the forms, you do not do this, you do not that, because that is not productive at all. Focus on one thing to fix and find a solution. And if you're ever having a conflict, do not go into it without thinking about the solution, because then it will be an awkward conversation of, well, how are we going to fix this? So have a game plan before you approach it, and just think like, this will not last forever. Your life will not revolve around this issue. Like, things will move on, things will smooth out. It'll get better.
Yeah, I've also had to deal with some intense conversations like that too over this last year. And one of the tools that we utilized was having, I guess, a neutral third party to help, I guess, advocate for both sides during the conversation. Like sometimes I would just sit in the middle and listen to both people say why they're having an issue with each other, and act as a little bit of a mediator, where it's like, okay, here's the needs that you need met, here's the needs that you need met, and then let's see if we can come to some agreement where both people are happy in the end. And we did also have to reach out, I believe, to student life for other more serious things, but again, that's why they're there, just to help us out for anything we need. And if it's something that you know that you yourself cannot handle, there will be someone that can help you with that.
Thank you all. I don't pay them to say these things, and so I'm just so grateful that they are sharing these experiences, because conflict is bound to happen. And so it's inevitable. But like Emily said, it doesn't last forever. And so really trying to figure out, like, how can we solve this together? And if it really gets serious, our office is available in case you need us to maybe be a third party to solve things together. Well, it looks like those are all the questions in the chat. I had some slides, but my computer is not being nice. My Zoom isn't being nice. So a few housekeeping items. LeadCon, as you all know, started today. I have a survey for you here shortly for you to complete. We have 2 other sessions this week. So tomorrow we're doing a session with Titan Wellness about avoiding burnout, because it's a lot to serve in these leadership positions. And so you can't do it by yourself. And so figuring out, what does self-care look like for you? And what does wellness really mean? Because wellness isn't just like the face masks and the exercise and the candles and things. There's a lot more to it. And so we will talk about wellness tomorrow. On Wednesday, we have a session about leading a group. And so navigating conflict, that will be a large part of that conversation. Next week, we have a session about creating and managing expectations, because especially as we're going back to this hybrid module or hybrid model of the semester, things that were relevant in the virtual environment may not be applicable to being back in person, and things that were happening pre-pandemic will not be the same. And so creating and managing expectations, that's a big conversation. On the 12th, we have a session about student organizations and the big issues of society. I know we had a small discussion about, having these conversations about larger issues related to social justice, but we'll dive a little bit deeper next week. And then lastly, we have a recruitment, engagement, and retention panel where we'll have other student leaders talk about their experience. I want to thank Rachel, Emily, Jehu, and Madison so much for presenting today. I took so many notes, and one of my favorite things that I think Madison said is we're not organizing Coachella. And so really honoring the humanity among all of us to get through it all, I think will help everybody, regardless if you're leading a student organization, but really just in any given situation. So I thank you all so much. Some other things to note. Re-registration is 3 steps. So LeadCon is often the last thing student groups need to do to fulfill their registration requirements. The first step is the re-registration form. The second step is the online training, which the president and the treasurer need to do. And then we have LeadCon happening up until next Friday. You don't just have to go to one. You can come to as many as you want. We'll try to record as many as we can. If you have questions about re-registration, we have re-registration clinics on Thursdays at 10:30. If you can't make it to those sessions, feel free to email us and we can set up a time to meet outside of that. Discover Fest is happening in a hybrid format. We'll see, we're getting through this together. Day 1 is going to be in person. Day 2 will be a virtual fair. Our day 1 in-person fair is going to be a lot smaller than it has been in the past. And so once you are fully registered, you'll get a link to sign up for the event. But we have a Discover Fest preparation webinar on the 18th, which we will also be recording and putting on our YouTube channel. And then let me put the link to the survey in the chat box. And so you should have this survey. So make sure you fill out this survey and select the organization that you're representing for LeadCon in the drop-down menu. And if the name isn't there, look at the name on TitanLink because it's copied verbatim that it states on TitanLink. But yeah, you have an hour to fill out this survey. There are just a few questions. And that is all we have. Thank you again to our panelists. I very, very, very much appreciate all of you. And thank you all for attending today's LeadCon session. I am so excited for a fall semester. It will be an interesting adventure. And so thank you. I will stick around. I know there are a few questions, but if you are able to open the survey and fill it out, you are good to go.